Well, are you familiar with the concept of a glow up? You know, like there's a trend right now going on, different forms of social media, that says we're going to put up a picture of myself when I was a kid and then say, you know, this is the person that prepared your taxes this week, and then show the glow up version. I thought that we could have a little fun this morning by doing a few of those ourselves, okay? And I know there's some people here that are a little nervous about what we're gonna do. So this is the guy who pastors your teens. Of course, this is what he looks like now. Look at that smolder. Okay, this is more what he looks like now. You know, but next up we have this one. This is the woman who's married to the guy who pastors your teens. Oh, yes, of course, this is what she looks like now. So, yeah, absolutely. Good glow up there. Let's see who's next. Yes. We have a trio of kids, a family in our church. One of them this is a chemical paper engineer who's becoming one. One's a maintenance worker and operator. The other's a lineman school to become a utility technician. That's pretty cool. Of course, this is Blake and Cole and Morgan Harrimans. So, yes, that's a great glow-up picture, isn't it, right there? Let's see what else we got. Oh, this is the women's spiritual growth team leader. We know who this one is? That's Angie Schiller right there. Yeah, great glow-up. I put Ryan in the shot because he's part of the glow-up, right? Man, look at how tan this guy is, right? Man, it's just awesome. We got next. Oh, this is the assistant to the lead and executive pastors. This is Deb Hayner, of course. Now she looks like this. Good glow up there. Okay, a little bit of time between those two shots, but that's fine. Let's see who else we got. Oh, this is your executive pastor. Pastor Dave Sill. Of course, he now looks like this. I thought that was a particularly good glow up right there. I think we have at least one more. Yes. This is the guy who used to be the pastor here. Pastor Bob McNeil. That's a great glow up right there. So this morning I have a story for us. And it's a story that features mistaken identity. And that's a result of what I'll call the greatest glow up in the history of the universe, okay? And we're going to find that story in John chapter 20. If you got a Bible, you can turn there. The story will begin in verse 11, but I want to set it up for us here a little bit this morning. Jesus has been crucified. This is the point in the story that we're at. Jesus has been crucified and he's been buried in a tomb. It's early Sunday morning, and a woman named Mary Magdalene goes looking for Jesus. Now, she's not going looking for the living Jesus. She watched Jesus die just a few days before. What she is doing is she is looking for Jesus' body. You see, for Mary, Jesus was particularly special. At one point in time in her story, Mary had been possessed not by one demon, not by two, or even 3, 4, or 5. She had been possessed by 7 demons. And Jesus was the one who set her free. He cast out all of those demons from her. He restored her mind and her sanity, restored her dignity, gave her her life back, actually gave her a new life. And so for Mary, watching Jesus die on the cross was particularly heartbreaking. And now, on early Sunday morning, because the Sabbath has passed, or else she would have done it the day before, she goes looking for Jesus' body, because what she's going to do is she's going to show him proper burial respect. She's going to care for his body with spices. And this is all out of love for Jesus. But then something happens that she did not expect. John chapter 20, verse 11. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw two angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. And they asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." Now, I got to be honest with you. As I read this story, and I've read it for many years, that question never made sense to me. "Woman, why are you crying?" Isn't it obvious? She's crying because she believes Jesus to be dead. She believes Jesus, this man, this God man who saw her in her moment of need, set her free, loved her like no one had loved her before. This man has been executed on a Roman cross. And now she believed he was here in the tomb, but now his body is gone. She's lost him twice in 3 days. So this question doesn't seem on the face of it to make a lot of sense. Woman, why are you crying? It's like angels. Have you been paying attention to what's been going on down here? Have you been paying attention to this? Because it seems like her tears make sense, and actually they do, because her tears tell us something. And they tell us something about how God sees life. Can we talk honestly about life for a moment here this morning? I know it's Easter, but just go here with me. We have to talk about life with the honesty of Solomon. Solomon was a man who lived many, many years ago. And at one point in time, God gave him a blank check prayer request, which is crazy, and said, "Pray for whatever you want and I'll give it to you." And Solomon, knowing that he was going to need tremendous wisdom to lead his people, said, "Lord, I need wisdom." And God said, "Because you asked for wisdom and not for money, power, fame, all these other things, I'm going to make you the wisest man to ever walk the face of the planet, or whoever will." And so that's what God does. He throws in all the other stuff too. And so Solomon would write things inspired by the Spirit of God, and we have them recorded, and one of them is in Ecclesiastes. And Solomon, who is the wisest man to ever live, the wisest man to ever walk this earth and do work, the wisest man to ever have his heart broken, the wisest man to ever experience the hilltops and the valleys of life, said this in summation of this life that we live: "It's meaningless," is what he said. This is meaningless. Yeah. And the reason that he said that is because he's speaking with honesty about this life. Like I said, we're going to talk honestly about this life right now. There's a tension in this life because there are wonderful hilltop moments in this life, moments where our hearts absolutely soar, but there are also valleys, and they're deep, and they're real, and they're heartbreaking. And as I look out to the many faces in this room today, I know I can see it on your face. Easter is fun and wonderful and great news, and trust me, we'll get back to that in just a minute. There's confetti everywhere. But amidst all of the color, underneath there's something that isn't so bright, and there's something that is deeply heartbreaking and difficult, and it's the reality that this life that we live is loss. It's loss. It's a series of losses. We grow up and we gain things. We gain abilities and relationships and family. And as we grow older, we start to lose all the things that we gained. We lose abilities, we lose relationships, we lose our loved ones. And over time, those losses pile up and the heartbreak of it piles up. And so when Mary steps into the tomb and sees those angels and they ask her the question, they're asking her a question that on the face of it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense, because what makes sense are Mary's tears. Of course, she's weeping. She's suffered loss. It's in this life. But there's a tension, because it's not just about the loss, because the angel's question also actually does make sense. And it makes sense in light of what has just happened. Mary doesn't know it yet, but what has just happened is standing right behind her. Let's keep reading. And they've taken my Lord away, she said, and I don't know where they've put him. And verse 14 says, at this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus. He asked her, same question, woman, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for? Right here. I love this line right here. Thinking he was the gardener, she said, sir, if you've carried him away, please tell me where you've put him and I'll get him. So Mary has just suffered this tremendous loss, and then standing right behind her is Jesus, but she's not able to recognize him in the moment. I believe some of this is because Jesus is supernaturally preventing the recognition in this moment, but also we have to know this, and this is part of the hope that we have here. His resurrected body is different. It's still him, but it's not exactly the same thing. And we know this. Her misrecognition here is understandable. She thinks she's talking to the gardener. Of course, part of this also is she just watched this man die 3 days before. So he's probably not on the top of her list of the people she's expecting to run into this morning. So she sees this person, I think that's probably the gardener. He's the same, but he's not quite the same. And that's actually really good news for us. Jesus talked about this one time. You don't have to turn there, but in John chapter 12, verse 24, he teaches us this, and he's talking about his death and resurrection. He says, very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Now, we have any gardeners in the room, even as a hobby, gardeners? Okay. A few of us still out there in this world. I'm not one of them. I just said a few of us because it's an expression. She thinks he's the gardener. It's so interesting that Mary could be so wrong about who he was and yet so right about what he does. Think about this. The gardener takes the seed, right? The buried seed, that's its death, and then brings forth new life. I watched a YouTube video one time recently. Yes, Pastor Steve watches YouTube videos. And it's this guy who's an expert botanist. And he put forth this little challenge. He said, I'm going to go to McDonald's and I'm going to buy a quarter pounder with cheese. Then he decided to buy a double quarter pounder with cheese, but it had nothing to do with the experiment. But then he brought it home, and before he did anything, before he ate it, he opened it up and he took one slice of the tomato from the quarter pounder with cheese. And he took it and he buried it in soil. And he said, that's all I'm going to do. Let's see what happens. What do you think happened? With proper watering and care, in about 3 months, he had a tomato plant that, no lie, produced at least 30 tomatoes. Why? Because this is the concept Jesus is using to teach us about his death and his resurrection. So we need to pay attention to this. The seed is buried. That's its death. It's one seed. It's a tomato seed. And up from, there might be 3 or 4 seeds in the slice, but that's it. Up from that death comes new life. It's a tomato plant now. There's more tomato. It's still a tomato plant, but it is new life. And Jesus says, my death and resurrection is going to be much the same, because like that seed that gets buried, when I die and I am put in the tomb, I will emerge like that seed, and as scripture says, be the first fruits of a new creation, a new kind of humanity. The ultimate glow up, if you will. And so Mary sees him, but doesn't quite see him, and thinks he's the gardener. In truth, like I said, she's wrong about who he is, but she's incredibly right about what he does. Remember where they are. They're not in a garden. They're in a graveyard. Now, graveyards have gardeners, but still, it's not a garden. It's a graveyard, and yet this is where she sees a gardener. Interesting thing about gardening, it's dirty work. It's very dirty work. You literally have to get into the dirt in order to do it. Now, I know lots of people wear gloves these days to do this, but many people don't. And I got a picture I want to show you. The gardener's hands, okay? The gardener's hands. Did you know that they have entire lines of hand care products for gardeners? You might know this if you're really into gardening, but there are entire lines of hand care products just made specifically for gardeners. And it's because their hands are constantly in the dirt and in the muck and bringing forth new life from death. This is the image that Jesus uses. And I want you to go here with me this morning, that though Mary recognized a person that she thought was the gardener, in truth, he is the ultimate gardener. Because this right here is where we find Jesus. We don't find Jesus in the nice, clean places. We find the resurrected Jesus in the graveyard, working the dirt and bringing forth from death brand new life. This is the Jesus, by the way, who spit on the ground and made mud and wiped it on the blind man's eyes so he could see again. Right? This is the Jesus who touched the leper. This is that Jesus. And it's the Jesus who is alive today, doing much the same work in our lives now. You say, how do we know this? Because in the hands of Jesus, everything that we lose in this life becomes a seed for something better that he will bring from the dirt of death. Everything that we lose in this life becomes a seed for what will be a better reality that he will bring forth from the dirt of death. You say, man, at one point in time, I had the ability to do this. I could work with my hands. I could work with my mind. I could do these things. And as I get older, I'm losing those abilities. In the hands of Jesus, the gardener, there will be new life brought back. This is why we celebrate the resurrection, because it's new life. It's the first fruits of a new creation. And it means that one day, if I put my hope in him from the dirt of death, he will bring me out in new life. And there will be a new physical life, a new earth, new gardens, straight from the graveyard. So in this gardener's hands, we sow in mourning, and Jesus turns it into dancing. We sow in guilt and shame and heartbreak, and Jesus, the gardener, turns it into glory. We sow in despair because we can't see where the hope can come from, and things in our life die all the time. In Jesus' hands, he brings out hope because he is the one. As he says in Revelation, he says, don't be afraid. I was once dead, and now I'm alive forever. And then he says this, I hold the keys. He says, I hold the keys of death and Hades, which means that though we are currently living a life marked by loss, and we will one day lose our own lives, in the hands of Jesus, from the dirt of death, we will emerge again with new life. Because this gardener is in the graveyard, and he turns graves into gardens. It's one more part of the story. Go back to John 20. He, Jesus, asked her, woman, why are you crying? Who is it you're looking for? Thinking he was the gardener, she said, sir, if you've carried him away, tell me where you've put him, and I will get him. And Jesus said to her, one word. He said, Mary. And like that, she knew who he was. One word. Mary. He said her name. I find that interesting. Sometimes I like to imagine that I'm in a Bible story, to put myself into it. So I'm not Jesus, but if I were a guy that just walked out of the grave, I feel like I'd make a deal out of it, like just some kind of but Jesus announces himself to this woman by saying her name, Mary. Why did he do that? He did it as a way to say to her and to the rest of us here today, this was for you. Everything that occurred Friday, Saturday, now Sunday morning, and I'm back. And Mary, it was for you. Mike, it was for you. Rich, it was for you. Because he knows that one day the life that you're living will end the same way his did, in death. But because he is the key holder now of death and Hades, this graveyard gardener is ready to bring your body out from the dirt and into new life. And it was for you. You came here today to Easter Sunday, and I have no idea what you were coming from. I have no idea what situation you're facing, what kind of trouble you're in, what kind of heartbreak your singing emerged from today. I have no idea if you are even listening to me and you're not even sure if there is a God, because you have been living this life and you have seen loss after loss after loss. And you're wondering, man, how in the world can I sit here and sing confidently that there is a God who has victory over death? But I'm here to tell you this morning that there is a God who has victory over death, and his name is Jesus Christ. And if you would but put your trust in him, then you can know for sure that though your body, like the seed, will be buried in the ground, he will raise you up as he has been resurrected himself. But in order for that to happen, God, make it personal. This is for me. This is for me. And so that means something. If you're listening to me and you're unsure of what's going to happen the moment that your life ends, man, I don't know. Because you've never really given your life to Jesus Christ. I want you to listen to me for just a minute. This happened for you. Why? Because the scriptures tell us that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. All have sinned. That's you, that's me, that's everybody on this stage. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And that the wages of sin is death. Not just physical death. That hits everybody. But the second death, the spiritual death that results in eternity in hell, that is real. Because the God of all the earth will judge, and he will judge rightly, and nothing slips in his courtroom. Nothing slides. Someone has to pay for sin, or else he's not a good judge. And it's good that he's a good judge. And so the question is going to be, am I going to be the one to pay for my sin, or is Jesus going to be the one to pay for my sin? Because when he sent Jesus to the cross, Jesus went willingly to pay for the sin that you and I have committed in this life. And it stands paid in full. And the way that we know that his sacrifice was legitimate was that death couldn't hold him anymore. And he emerged from the grave victorious as the key holder of sin and death, which means that when it locks you up at the end of this life, he's the one that can set you free. But you've got to trust him. And so I invite you to do this. The scriptures tell us that if you say with your mouth that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Why do we need to believe in our heart that God raised him from the dead? Because dead lords can't rule. Jesus is a living Lord, which means that I got to follow him. I'm giving my life to him for the rest of my days from here on out. But here's what you get in return. You get hope. You get joy. You get peace. Even in this life, in the midst of loss, you get the assurance of knowing that God hears me when I pray. And he doesn't just hear me as a human. He hears me as a child is heard by a father. You also get the assurance of knowing that whenever this life does end, you know exactly what's going to happen. And like Jesus was raised and emerged from death to life, you will too. And this life will be but the footnote of the totality of your life in eternity. Now, I think that's pretty good news. So, in just a minute here, we're all going to stand together and we're going to sing. We're going to sing an old favorite of mine that I love to sing on Easter Sunday. And I want you to consider this. If you heard me talk about the hope that we have in Christ, and you know, man, I have never actually given my life to Jesus as Lord. I've never actually done that. I've not had someone pray with me. I've not said those words. And you know that you're hearing me right now and you haven't done that. Here's what you have right now to consider. You can leave this building today knowing the hope that you have. I would love to help you with that. I'm going to be right here at the front. Right after we sing our song today and we dismiss for the rest of the day, you can come up and talk to me, and I would love to help you make that choice, because there's no more important choice to make than the one to give your life to the one who has victory over death. Because then you know that whenever that comes, the one who turns graves into garden is going to turn death to life in your mortal body forever.